Episode 533. Two battle mages and two launchers, all professions built for relentless, all-out assault, with Ye Shu leading the charge and Su Mu Cheng providing supporting fire and control. They tore through the same level dungeon at a blistering, overwhelming pace. Although Qian Sheng and Ma Hupao had already run the dungeon with them several times, it was only now that they witnessed how the two pro-gods truly unleashed their skills.
Amazing!
They praised him in unison. Of course, their goals were different. Thousand City was a fan of Ye Chu, while Monday Morning Quarterback was a fan of Su Mu Cheng. But that didn't affect their relationship, since everyone knew Ye Chu and Su Mu Cheng were also exceptionally close. If their fans can't get along, wouldn't that be a slap in the face to their idols? The two of them fought with passion, clearing out the mobs until they reached the boss. They showed no sign of panic, because with a godlike teammate, they barely felt the dungeon's difficulty. They simply watched their cooldowns and mana, fighting with the most efficient output possible. The first boss went down quickly. Over on her side, Shen Guo checked the time, her face lighting up with delight, but she had no one to share the moment with. Ye Shu and Tang Ru were both focused in the dungeon, and she didn't want to disturb them. The rest of the run went just as smoothly. The second boss fell even faster than the first. Chen Guo checked the time again and couldn't help but go open a drink to celebrate. The final stretch of the Thousand Waves Lake dungeon was a water battle, another reason for Ye Shu's confidence. In PvE, water combat wasn't nearly as awkward for the average player as it was in PvP. But regardless, Ye Shu and Su Ma Cheng still held a distinct advantage in this area. As for the others, they already knew the drill for this dungeon by heart. Forward, forward, pushing ever onward. Chen Guo had stopped watching the battle. She just took a sip of her drink, glanced at the clock, and grew more excited with every look. The level 40 dungeon has 3 mini-bosses and 1 final boss. After the second boss, they cut their way through and faced the third. The tactics differed, but the pattern was identical. Without a single hitch, the third boss fell.
This is the final stretch. Don't let your guard down.
It wasn't until the final boss of the entire dungeon that Ye Shu, the commander, spoke his first words. The
Yes.
team's coordination was simply flawless. There was nothing to critique about the entire process.
Yes.
Everyone responded in unison.
Let's go!
You all heard the boss's voice from backstage.
Go.
Go, said Ye Shu. It was the same old routine. Su Mu Cheng's windy rain would pull the aggro, and then Lord Grim would rush in to take over, with cannon fire and battle lances. Since the team was primarily made up of battle mages and launchers, the skill effects on display naturally had a high degree of repetition. It might not be as flashy as a multi-class combo, but in terms of pure efficiency, it's just as devastating. The final boss's health bar wasn't just dropping, it was being harvested. The boss's health bar was visibly, steadily dropping.
It's down! It's down! It's down!
Shen Guo didn't dare make a sound. Her hands clenched tightly around her phone as she repeated the words over and over in her mind. Finally, she could let go and shout those words with everything she had. The final boss of the Thousand Waves Lake dungeon fell, and the system announcement sounded right on cue. Congratulations to the Happy Guild players Lord Grim, Windward Formation, Soft Mist, Thousand City, and Monday Quarterback for breaking the Thousand Waves Lake dungeon clear record with a time of 30 minutes, 25 seconds, and 41 milliseconds. Seeing those long unseen words, Tang Ru smiled, feeling deeply content. Chen Guo, however, seemed a little disappointed at that moment. She looked at Ye Shu and Tang Ru, then spoke up.
The Happy Guild doesn't sound very good, does it? We should have called it something like the Happy Pavilion.
Just as everyone was celebrating the new record, guild boss Chen Guo suddenly took a shot at the guild's name, a move even the battle-hardened Ye Shu hadn't seen coming. Shen Guo's voice, of course, came through Ye Shu's headset loud and clear once more, plunging the entire group into a sudden, stunned silence. After a brief, stunned silence, it was the well-traveled Ye Shu who spoke first. He picked up the thread of conversation by poking fun at the guild's name.
For now, it's fine. We can always start fresh when we get to the heavenly domain. After all, that's where the real game is.
That makes sense.
Chen Guo nodded.
Should we start setting up guilds in the other servers as well?
Yi Shu broke out in a cold sweat.
Still early, still early.
Chen Guo gave a non-committal and finally said nothing more. But this sudden quip effectively punctured the group's excitement over the new dungeon record. It would feel a bit silly to try and get excited about it again now. In the end, it was Yi Shu who showed the composure of a true leader. Turning back to face the four of them, he spoke with perfect calm.
Let's continue with the dungeon.
They'd only used one run to set the new record. For normal leveling, they still had 2 more dungeon attempts left, so of course they'd use them. A perfectly logical choice. The other 4 wouldn't have any objections. So, while the rest of the guild was still cheering over the new record, our 5 protagonists had already returned to the mundane grind of leveling. Their excitement hadn't actually cooled off that quickly. They just didn't know how to pick things back up after such a strange, abrupt interruption. As for Qincheng and Mahopo, even after starting their second dungeon run, they couldn't help but keep pulling up the dungeon record leaderboard, admiring their own names sitting at the top of the 1000-wave lake record list, along with that finishing time of 30 minutes, 25 seconds, and 41 milliseconds. Then, they'd sneak in a couple of silly, self-satisfied giggles. Soon enough, their lack of focus caught up with them. One after the other, they fell out of sync with the team's rhythm, a clear mistake. It was clear they had no hope of beating the record on this second dungeon run, and both of them quickly apologized. Yi Shu wasn't bothered either, telling them to relax. The current record was already formidable enough. 30 minutes, 25 seconds, and 41 milliseconds, a full 4 minutes ahead of the second place time. All of this was essentially the result of the powerful field control created by Yi Chu and Sumu Cheng working in tandem. Their coordination was on a level that even the top-tier professional league could scarcely surpass. It's like they say, the tougher the dungeon, the greater the advantage for Yi Shu's team, thanks to the 2 professional-level players in their ranks, himself and Sumu Cheng. Yi Shu was already quite satisfied with the record. What had been bothering him this whole time was the reaction from the major guilds. The World Channel was just too quiet, unnaturally quiet for a game like Glory. The moment he stepped out of the dungeon, Ye Shu took another careful look around. Still, there was no sign of any activity. Are these guilds really just giving up on competing with Happy? Yi Chu didn't quite believe it, but that's how things seemed to be. From Yi Shu's experience, something was definitely off here. The major guilds were holding their positions. That meant they were confident, waiting with some surefire backup plan in reserve.